Being here, we've known each other a long time. We have spoken. We're proud South Africans. I still have my South African passport. We travel with this passport, and I got my visa here. So, but we want to see things get better in our home country. That's the bottom line. It's been 35 years since the transition. President Ramaphosa was right in the middle of the transition time in 1990 and before that. So it's been 35 years of ANC government. And I know there's a lot of anger, through the transition. There was also a lot of stuff happening in the apartheid days. We grew up in the apartheid era. But I don't think two wrongs makes a right. President Mandela, when he came out of prison for all that time, didn't come out with hatred, and really unified our nation through sport. We won the Rugby World Cup in '95.
4 times.
We won the African Nations Cup, soccer. We won some majors as golfers and so forth. So what I'm trying to say is, this has been a long time coming. That's why we really wanted to meet you, meet the administration, and see our way forward, because we still want to see our country flourish. We've got some great things going on. Business is getting involved with government. Farmers are getting involved in local municipalities, trying to rebuild some of the infrastructure that's been decaying for a long time. So there's a lot of coexistence going on and help from a lot of areas. But I feel we need the US to push this thing through. We've got a great ally if we can have the US. It's always been an ally of South Africa for a very long time, even in the days of the war, up in Angola. You guys helped us. So very important for us to have your support and get the change we need.
Where did you do that well? He might have done that even better than he plays golf, which is almost impossible. Johan, please.
Sorry, Mr. President, if you had to wind all of those places properly, you will see I'm the biggest target of that rabble-rouser. Number one for over 10 years. Mr. Malema. In fact, the first time I met him, he was in the youth league with that gentleman, and look how he's changed.
Right.
We have too many deaths, but it's across the board. It's not only white farmers, it's across the board. And we need technological help. We need Starlink at every little police station. We need drones. I actually got drones donated for the peace parks to stop elephant and rhino poaching. And his predecessor stopped the importation because he said the United States would spy on us. I mean, US basics, the ridicule. So if you can help us. Remember, sir, you and I lived in New York in the 70s. We never thought New York could be what it became. 2 commissioners, a tough mayor. We need your help to stop this awful killing. But it's across the board. Ernie's right now building a house in George. I'm building 3 cottages for my grandchildren on a farm outside Graaff-Reinet. I often go to bed without locking the door. And we have a serious problem with illegal aliens who stream across the border. And if you really look at our statistics, a lot of these murders, firstly, it's unemployment and illegal aliens. And then I met Vice President Vance many years ago, the Charlie Rose show. My wife loved the book. And she reminded me this morning that you emphasized the devastation that occurs when big companies leave towns and cities, and there's a culture of dependency that develops. And I remember you discussing it. Now that's our problem. If we don't get our economy to grow, the culture of dependency and the lawlessness will increase. I've again been against apartheid all my life, and I'm their #1 target. Please just Google my name and Malema. You'll see it, sir. He marched on the farm.
But the crime is bad.
The crime is terrible, sir, but Mr. Steenhuisen won't admit to it, but he runs the Western Cape, where I live. And the biggest murder rate is in the Cape Flats. Gangs. We've got gang warfare. Like your M33, what are these guys? We've got equivalents there. But we need your help, sir. And we need Elon technology.
Well, one of the real areas of support is really in investments. We've got to grow our economy, because through growing the economy, we're then able to create more jobs. Because crime really thrives where there is inequality and unemployment. And that is one of the reasons that has brought us here, to improve our investment relations, our trade relations, so that we can preserve the number of jobs that your companies have created in South Africa. By virtue of what we export to you, we are able to create up to 500,000 jobs in the auto industry, in the agricultural industry, and a number of other industries, mining, where we export things to you. And we also know that as South African companies invest here, you are also able to create jobs. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship. So our main real reason for being here is to foster trade and investment, so that we are able to grow our economy with your support, and so that we are also able to address all these societal problems, because criminality thrives when people are unemployed, when they have no other hope to eke out a living. So that is what we need to do. Your support, your partnership with us is what is really going to give us a strong capability to move forward.
Retief, do you have,
the backyard?
excuse me, do you have anything to say? I mean, I don't want to leave you out. You know, the guy won 3 or 4 majors. 3 or 4?
No, only 2.
That's a lot. By the way, 2's a lot. A lot of tournaments you won too. Do you have anything to say?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. President Ramaphosa. I grew up in an area in South Africa that is a farmland area, Polokwane.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there is some issues up there. Obviously, my dad was a property developer as well as a part-time farmer. And yeah, some of these buddy farmers got killed. The farm is still going. My brothers run it. But it's a constant battle with farms they're trying to burn the farms down to chase you away. So it is a concern to try and make a living as a farmer, and at the end they, without farmers, there's no food on the plate. So we need the farmers
Your
to
brother
produce
loves
the food.
farming, right? He wouldn't do it. He wouldn't even want to do what you're doing, right? They love farming. They don't want to leave. But it's a struggle.
Yeah, and food and fresh water is the most important thing in life. Without those 2 things you can't survive.
How is the water there?
The water is great, obviously. All the water comes out of the borehole, out of ground for us down
Right.
there. But yeah, it is a battle to get the water out sometimes when all the equipment gets stolen all the time that you're trying to get the
So
water
does
out.
your family and your brother, do they feel safe on the farm?
They live behind electric fences, try and be at night safe. But it is constant whenever you leave that something could happen. And
There's nowhere to live.
both of them has been attacked in their houses. My mom's been attacked in her house when she was 80. So it is difficult. But the guys live. great life, despite everything going on.
Something.
President Trump, I brought along the president of the largest trade union in our country, Ziggy Solosi, because she leads many, many workers, more than 1 million, 2 million workers. And maybe we should give her a chance to say something, because she's come all the way to join us.
Thank you very much, Mr. President Trump,
Thank you.
for having us, and President for extending the invitation to us as organized labor. And I must say that we are here to support the initiative that has been made by our government with business, of course, as organized labor. We've been coming to Washington on the AGOA trade relations in the previous regime. And I think at the center of it all, for me, it is exactly what Mr. Rupert has said, the importance of us growing the economy. We have always emphasized when we were here and kept on coming and negotiating on AGOA that the 600 US companies that are based in South Africa, as you said, President Ramaphosa, 500,000 jobs will be wiped out. We need more foreign direct investment in our country. We are not just talking about those that will lose employment, but we are talking about over 40% of people that are unemployed, that have no hope of ever finding a job. And we think that, correctly, as they have said, that we need to deal with the issue of porous borders in our country, so that everyone that comes in is documented. We also need to, and I would have thought that the minister would address the issue of land expropriation and how the policy works in South Africa. Recently, President, as you were preparing to come here on the news, in, I think it was in Natal, there was a handover of farms, and white farmers were saying, we are donating the land, but also there's a willing buyer, willing seller in South Africa. So there is no expropriation without compensation, but it is a willing buyer, willing seller. And that white farmer was even saying, President, that the government is even paying more in buying the land than what the land is worth of. And I think those are the realities, President, that we must say that we need to address, of course, but also the importance of agriculture linked to AGOA. People rely on it, and I think, as Retief have said, for survival and living. But lastly, for me, President, is also the issue of the crime statistics. There is no doubt about it that we are a violent nation, for a number of reasons, and we're not condoning
Welcome to Fuel Chess. Thanks for watching the video.
But also, if you go into
just
the rural
to chime
area
in here, so I'm let's see here. So this was really an interesting conversation today that happened in the White House between the president of South Africa and the president of the US, Donald Trump. I think I agree with the South African business speech guy, Vusi Tembekwayo, who indicated that, the winners of what happened was Team South Africa, and which indicates that those who are for the unity of South Africa. But before I proceed onto my own analysis, my full chess analysis, the question that always bugs me whenever I see African countries coming to the West, it can, going to Asia, going to Europe, wherever it is, I'm going to the so-called developed world to seek help. It's laughable to me because I believe that Africa has everything it needs on the continent. All the allies Africa needs on the continent. And I'm saying that Africa should not reach out and form allegiances in Europe and the Americas and think, yes, but what we know, African countries normally seek things like economic development, business, and all that stuff could be done on the continent. That's what I believe. The trade can be done among the African nations. Security can be, but the problem is that there's too much greed on the continent, and the psyche of the leaders are rotten. It's unimaginably rotten, in the sense that they only care about their pockets. I don't know what the problem is, but that is something that needs to be fixed. The second question I have is that, and I might be not too much privy to this, but I'm always curious to know why white South Africans own majority of the land in South Africa. And it's not just in South Africa. I see the same thing in Zambia as well. Now, my question comes about that, is it that the whites settled in South Africa first? Because from like a layman's perspective is that the people who were on the land first will be the owners of the land. And just on the top of my head, I would think it would be Africans who, or the tribes who were on the land first will be the owners of the land. And if that is the case, that means the white South Africans took the land away from the original owners of the land. Did they take it peaceably? Did they compensate the people they took it from when they traced the lineage of the families that originally owned the land? Or was it just coerced and it's just like, yeah, this is what we got from those times of apartheid? That's one question I have. Why is it that all this farming and agriculture is predominantly white South Africans? I don't understand that. It's something I want to understand, okay? If you're from South Africa, please let us know. So those are my two questions, right? Another thing I also ask is that, what is the definition of a genocide? Is what is happening in South Africa really a genocide? Because the word genocide is being thrown about. Hopefully it's not, because if it is, then it's wrong. I think I believe in peace. I think that South Africa should find a way to settle whatever is going on amicably. And they are called a rainbow country for a reason. So they should find a way to because the beauty of South Africa is in the diversity of the country. Because I don't care what you want to say, the white folks are one of the pillars that make South Africa what it is. Let's not deny that. That's one of the facts. Without the whites in South Africa would not be what it is. I don't think it will be. We can argue that, but it is what it is, right? But here is my thing. Doing this whole, I don't know if it's an interview or is a plea for help or, an ambassador, whatever it was that the South African president came to do, the discussion with Trump, right? I found it a bit weird sometimes, and you can see it in the videos, right? And I found it that I don't know. First of all, I want to commend the president of South Africa, right? He held his own. He did well. I have more respect for him. He didn't show any form of overly groveling. He didn't show any form of intimidation. He composed himself well. And one of the things I really commend him on is the way that he brought the discussion in a way to protect his country. What do I mean by that? Now, if you watch, most of Trump's friends who he wanted to hear from, the golfers and the other white folks who were there, who was white South Africans, who I believe were even alive during the apartheid times, who were talking, they spoke a lot about criminal things happening, about violence, about gangs, about how their farmland is not being protected and things like that. And the president always came back to, listen, what we are here for is to gain economic development, to gain business, which we know will have a trickle-down effect on all this other thing. The president of South Africa focused on the big picture, which is what every president should do. Countries should not come to other countries and expose themselves, because the reality of the situation is that every country has crimes in and within it. Even the US have crimes. There are gangs, there's all of these things, right? So it's not something to come and start saying, oh, this is the reason for this, which is what those white guys were mainly doing. They were talking about criminals and of course we know who they're trying to pinpoint when they say those things. And I found that Trump was more interested in listening to them than listening to the president of South Africa. Another thing I observed with the president of South Africa, which I liked, is that he gave a voice to the people that came with him. Because I didn't understand why people I don't think those guys were part of the government. They're white South Africans, even the guy that showed his passport, please, And the fact that the president called upon that lady who was part, and if you see in the video, there was a lady who I believe is part of the employment or labor union or something, and she spoke. I think that was very good of him. It brought about inclusivity and also brought it back to the fact that we have an envoy of officials who came for this trip who should be talking and not just Trump's friends and golfers. So I think that it was a fruitful conversation, I would say. This is my first time really listening to the president of South Africa, and I think he did a good job. I think he composed himself well. I think he held ground in terms of the focus and not... He made it clear that the trip was not to beat down on South Africa and talk about the things that are wrong with the country, but initially focusing on the things that need to, be done to help the economy of the country, which is the reason why they came. So I think it was a good discussion. I think the president of South Africa did well. I think it was a win for Team South Africa. For those who are not on the Mandela side, who sees things from a different lens, well, I would like to hear from you guys why you think that the division is necessary. And again, one thing I will say, we can't say apartheid was just terrible things were done during apartheid. That's a fact, right? And let's not forget about those things, but let's find a way to move on. But move on, remembering the past and then moving on in a smart way. We can't just, I think most time it seems like people are just trying to wipe away like apartheid didn't even exist at all, right? So I think it was a good discussion with the president. I think he held his own and he did a good job. So let me know what you guys think. What is the next steps, though? That's what I want to know. What's the way forward for South Africa in light of what is going on in the country with the farmers, with the insecurity, with all these things that was brought forth for the U.S. to come and, have a place on the South African table to help them. So let me know what you guys think, man. Once again, this is Food Chest. Peace.